videos that I've made, and I will add some more in the future as well. But right now I do have a tutorial video of the kitty coaster, so I make it with you guys, and what you will need is a 3.75 millimeter hook, which I will be using, some scissors, and a stitch marker. And then you will need a needle for the end of the project to weave in the ends from the magic circle and from the very end of the project, just to hide the ends inside the project. So we're gonna start with making our magic circle, and it's basically kind of like a loose slip knot. So if you make a slip knot, you don't finish it off and just leave it open like this, and then you chain one, and that's your magic circle. I'm sure there are some good tutorial videos that you can find on YouTube that will teach you more close up and explain in a better way, but I think that's the best way that I can explain to you guys how to make a magic circle. Then we chain 2, and we're gonna make 12 double crochet in this magic circle, and the chain 2 does not count as a double crochet, so we're not gonna count it at all when counting our crochet stitches. We're gonna count from the second stitch, so it's gonna be the double crochet that we make. Somebody asked me to show how I use the stitch markers in my previous video. So what I usually do is I insert the stitch marker in the first stitch of the round. So I put it under the 2 loops like that, and secure that stitch so I know where it started, and then I continue to go around, and then you continue to crochet the round the way you would normally would. Like right now we will be crocheting 12 double crochet all around, and we stop right before where the stitch with the stitch marker. That's how we know this is where the round ends. So right before our stitch marker stitch. I hope that makes sense. Right now I put my stitch marker in the empty stitch, so the stitch that we're not gonna count as a double crochet when we chain 2. So this is a chain 2, but it is still a stitch, so this is how I know this is where I began my round. Today we're gonna talk about an infamous case of Jeffrey MacDonald, and it might be infamous to a lot of people. It's a very famous case, but I have actually never heard of this case before recently. So I just recently heard about it and I got so interested, so I began my research, and it's actually very twisted, extremely controversial, and complicated. So I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I started my research, but here we are after days and hours of research. I am finally ready to give you guys the story of Jeffrey MacDonald. Jeffrey MacDonald was born on October 12th, 1943. He was born in Queens, He also had two siblings, an older brother named Jay and a younger sister named Judy. And it seems that the parents decided to name their kids with names that started with the same letter, J. The family was not doing very good financially, and it was actually sad that the family barely could make ends meet. The family lived in Long Island for most of Jeffrey's childhood, and this is where Jeffrey went to school as well. He went to Pachogue High School. Jeffrey was actually a very popular kid in school, and he got along with everyone, and the girls adored him because he was very good looking as well. In fact, he was even a student council president in high school, as well as prom king as a senior in high school. He was also voted the most popular and the most likely to succeed in the future. Jeffrey was not just very good looking, he was very smart as well. And that made him even more popular with girls. One particular girl that really admired him was a girl that went to high school with him. Her name was Colette Stevenson. Colette was the same age as Jeffrey. She was born on May 10th, 1943. Colette was a dancer and lived with her stepdad and her mom. Unfortunately, she had a tragic childhood when her dad committed suicide when Colette was only 11 years old. In 9th grade, Jeffrey and Colette began to date. However, they were both 14 years old at this time, and it was kind of too young for them to have a serious relationship, so that didn't last long. They did end up breaking up over the summer. They ended up dating other people throughout the years in high school. I forgot to mention that Jeffrey's dad was very strict with him and with all his children. He demanded obedience. He wanted them to have the best grades and to go to the best university. And it wasn't a problem for Jeffrey because he was already smart. It wasn't difficult for him to get accepted to the most prestigious university. And in hopes to become a doctor, Jeffrey got accepted to Princeton University. And so this is where he began attending after high school. This is when Jeffrey and Colette got back together and began to date again. They were older now, and it was more serious this time. Colette was living in Saratoga, New York, and attending Skidmore College. And she was studying English literature. Since Princeton University is located in New Jersey, Jeffrey would visit Colette on weekends by taking trains to see her. In August of 1963, Colette found out that she is pregnant with Jeffrey's child, and this is when Jeffrey decided to propose to Colette so they can get married before the child is born. So on September 14th, 1963, Jeffrey and Colette had a shotgun wedding. So they had their first child born on April 18th, 1964. They named her Kimberly. A year later, Jeffrey was accepted to the Northwest Medical School in Chicago, so the family ended up moving there in 1965. Majority of 1960s, Jeffrey spent focusing on his studies to become a doctor, and Colette decided to become a stay-at-home mom at this point. In 1967, the family welcomed their second daughter and named her Kristen. In 1968, Jeffrey was accepted for an internship at New York Presbyterian Hospital, so the family moved to New Jersey at this time. And this is when he was studying thoracic surgery. So this is basically operation on organs such as lungs, I believe, and heart and esophagus. This was a very tough time for the family because Jeffrey was actually never home. During this time, he was always at work. He lived at work pretty much for that whole year of 1968. After internship was done in 1969, Jeffrey decided that he wants to go to the army, and so he enlisted himself for basic training for the army. After the training, Jeffrey volunteered to join the Green Berets, and the Green Berets are the special force in the army. He joined them as a physician. Jeffrey was later promoted to become a lieutenant, and then later he became a captain. He was then assigned in Fort Bragg, which is in North Carolina. And he eventually brought his whole family there to live with him as well. By 1969, Jeffrey became a full-fledged physician, and you could say that he was very successful for his age, especially because he was only 26 years old at this time, and he's already a doctor and a captain in the army. And in late 1969 is when the family received some more great news. Colette found out that she's expecting another baby. It's gonna be a boy this time. And it seemed that things were going so good for the family. Colette went back to school and eventually got her degree in English literature, and then she went to teach because Kristen was more of a tomboy, and she would always try to stand up for her older sister whenever somebody was trying to bully her. Colette even wrote a letter to one of her college friends, and in this letter, Colette expressed how happy she is with life. She said she's never been as happy and satisfied with life as she was at that moment, with 2 kids, great husband, and she also announced to this friend that she was expecting a baby boy. On February 16th, 1970, Jeffrey took his 2 daughters to go play and ride a pony that he got them on Christmas of that year. So yes, he got them a pony. Can you imagine? It's like every child's dream, and they were leaving this dream, and they named their pony Trooper. So they had fun riding and feeding the pony. Of course, the dad was with them the whole time, and then they got home around 5:45 p.m. This is when they had some dinner that Colette made for them. After dinner, Colette went to work because she actually was teaching part-time at the evening school nearby. So she went to teach the class. At around 7 p.m., Jeffrey put the girls to sleep and went to lay down on a couch himself. After sleeping for about an hour, at around 8 p.m., Jeffrey was woken up by Kimberly, the oldest daughter, and she was asking if she could watch the favorite show that was going on at that time. They watched the show together, and then Jeffrey put Kimberly to bed and told her to go to sleep. He told her good night, and then he was waiting for Colette to get home. Colette returned from her job at around 9:40 p.m. and after she came back, they watched the Tonight Show together. But midway in the show, Colette said that she's feeling kind of tired and she didn't want to finish the show, so she told him good night and went to the master bedroom, as Jeffrey was left in the living room. And this is all according to Jeffrey's words. So he claims that he went to sleep on the couch at around midnight and fell asleep there. At 3:42 a.m., police received a frantic call from Jeffrey MacDonald, and he screamed, "Help! 544 Castle Drive. Stabbing. Hurry." And then the dispatcher heard the phone fall somewhere. When the police arrived, they knocked on the door and nobody answered, so they went around the house, and this is when they found an open back door, and they walked inside the house. And inside the house, they were confronted with a scene from a horror movie. The house looked like it was ransacked, and both Colette and Jeffrey were laying on the floor, and a master bedroom in front of their bed. So they weren't on the bed, they were by the bed. They both looked like they had multiple stab wounds, and there was blood all over the carpet. Also, there was a bloody paring knife laying between them. The wounds on Jeffrey were not life-threatening. However, Colette was stabbed repeatedly 40 times in the chest. She was also stabbed in the neck, and both of her forearms were broken. As per paramedics were checking out Jeffrey and Colette. Jeffrey told paramedics to check out the children's bedrooms because he heard them crying before. This is when they discovered 5-year-old Kimberly lying on his side in her room on the bed, and she was dead. She was also stabbed in the neck about 8 times, and on top of that, her skull was fractured from at least 2 blows to the head. It was determined that the cause of her death was hemorrhage of the brain because she was hit so many times to the head. 2-year-old Kristen was also found in a horrific scene. She was also dead in her bed with a baby bottle right next to her mouth. Baby Kristen was stabbed 33 times with a knife and 15 times with an ice pick. 2 of the wounds penetrated her heart, and she had defense wounds on her hands as well, which means that she was also trying to fight off the attacker, unfortunately. On the headboard of Jeffrey and Colette's bed, the word pig was written with Colette's blood, and after Jeffrey got resuscitation, he was able to get up, and he looked around and looked at his wife that was laying next to him, and she was dead. And this is what he said. He said, "Jesus Christ, look at my wife. I'm going to kill those goddamn acid heads." While on a stretcher being rushed to the hospital, Jeffrey MacDonald kept screaming, "Let me see my kids." This horrendous crime obviously shocked the community. The family seemed so happy together. They had a perfect life. Who could have done this to them? And why would anyone kill the innocent kids in such a brutal way? I mean, the 2-year-old was stabbed 33 times with a knife and 15 times with an ice pick. So she must have already been dead by the time she was stabbed with the ice pick. So many stab wounds for such a small child. Judging by the severity of the wounds, police decided that this must have been a crime of passion. Luckily, there was one surviving victim, Jeffrey MacDonald, who was still in the hospital, and police was hopeful that he would lead them to whoever committed this heinous crime on his family. As Jeffrey was getting treated in the hospital, the medical staff noted that his wounds weren't as severe as other family members. He had a mild concussion and one small mark on his head. So it seemed like he was hit on the head with something. And he also had one single stab wound on the right side between his ribs. The surgeon that treated his wound said that it looked like a clean and sharp incision. And this wound actually led to his lungs partially collapsing. He also had bruises all over his body and fingernail scratches on his chest, but none of these wounds were life-threatening. In fact, he didn't even need any stitches for any of these wounds. And after 9 days in the hospital, Jeffrey was released to go home. Since Jeffrey was serving in the army at that moment, Army Criminal Defense investigators ended up investigating his case, and they got him for questioning as soon as he was released from the hospital. Guys, I actually had to undo this row. I counted my stitches, which always count your stitches to make sure you have the right amount, and I don't have the right amount, so I went wrong somewhere. This is why you need a will mess up if you know, talking like me. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna redo this row. This is what Jeffrey MacDonald told the investigators on February 17th at around 2 in the morning. Jeffrey woke up from sleeping on the couch. He got up and decided to wash the dishes. So after washing the dishes, he went to sleep in the master bedroom where Colette was already sleeping. However, when he got there, he discovered that Kristen, the 2-year-old, was already sleeping on his side of the bed. And he also saw that she wet the bed as well on his side. And Jeffrey said that he remembered putting Kristen to bed around 7, as you remember. So he thought that Kristen must have come during the night and decided to sleep with her mom because she noticed that he wasn't in bed with her. And this is when Jeffrey stated that he picked up Kristen and put her in her own room on her bed. And he decided not to wake Colette up to change the sheets. So he decided to go ahead and go back to the couch and sleep there. And he said he fell asleep, but not for long, because at around 3 in the morning, he heard Colette's screams. So he rushed to help her, to see what's going on. And he said as he got up from the couch and started running towards master bedroom, he was attacked by 3 men and 1 woman. He said that one of the men was black and the other 2 were white. He said that the shorter one of the white males was wearing surgical gloves, and the woman was also white and she was wearing a wig and boots, and the wig was blonde colored. Jeffrey also stated that the woman had white head on her face that partially covered her face, so she couldn't really see her face as well. He also said that the woman had a lighted candle in her hand as the men were attacking. And she kept repeating, "Acid is groovy, kill the pigs." Jeffrey said that she looked like a typical hippie, and he used the word hippie. Jeffrey said that the intruders were hitting him with a piece of wood and also stabbed him with an ice pick. And it was mostly the male intruders that were attacking. The female just stood there and continued saying, "Acid is groovy, kill the pigs." As they were attacking, Jeffrey managed to pull his pajama top over his head and he pulled it to his wrists. This is how he managed to get away from the attacks and blows with an ice pick to his face and chest area. However, the attackers eventually overpowered him and he was knocked unconscious. He said that when he regained consciousness, the attackers had already left the house. This is when Jeffrey ran to the girls' bedrooms and found them dead, and so he didn't know they were dead yet, and he tried to resuscitate them with CPR, and nothing worked. Jeffrey also said that he found his wife's body and the knife was still in her chest. He ended up pulling the knife out of her chest. After realizing that the wife wife is also dead. He placed his own pajama top on her chest, and this is when he called 911. This is also some of the story that Jeffrey told police right on scene when he was taken to the hospital. And so the day of the incident, police was already looking for intruders that Jeffrey described as looking hippie. The girl that was wearing a wig and high boots. Police, however, could not find anyone that fits the description in Fort Bragg. By 6 a.m. on the day of the murders, police stopped their search efforts. So police found that the murder weapons were a kitchen knife that was from the kitchen of MacDonald's family, also ice pick that was also from their house, and a piece of lumber that was also from their house and was taken from the wall in Colette's closet. All the items were wiped clean by somebody to get rid of the fingerprints. When police showed the items to Jeffrey, he said he's never seen these items before, even though these were the items from his own house. So as you can see by now, Jeffrey's story didn't really have much supporting evidence. First of all, Jeffrey claimed that he had been attacked. Jeffrey has been trained in unarmed combat in the army, but there were no signs of struggle in the living room where Jeffrey said he had been attacked. The room was all in order except for a knocked over coffee table. Just one knocked over coffee table doesn't seem like much of a struggle. Another thing is that Jeffrey claimed that his pajama tops were ripped during the struggle. However, investigators could not find a single fiber from the pajama tops in the living room where the struggle took place, according to Jeffrey. They did, however, find the fibers from his pajama tops under Colette's body. They also found the fibers under her fingernails and in both Kristen and Kimberly's rooms, and also splinters from the lumber that was used in the attack were found all over the house except for the living room. There was no blood or fingerprints found on the phone that was used to call 911. A tip of the surgical glove covered in blood was found under the headboard where the word pig was written. And this glove matched perfectly with the gloves that Jeffrey himself used and kept in their kitchen cabinet. Moreover, it actually rained a lot on the day of the murders, and Jeffrey claimed that the female intruder had boots on, and he said that they were very wet. However, there were no footprints found except one bare footprint found inside the master bedroom. So this evidence made it clear that Jeffrey's evidence did not support it. There was no DNA technology until 1990s, so they couldn't really use DNA to find the killer. However, they did find out that everyone in the family had different blood types. So they performed forensic analysis on the blood that was found. First, Kimberly's blood was found on Jeffrey's top, and Jeffrey claimed that he took the top off before entering the room to try to resuscitate Kimberly. Also, Jeffrey's blood was found in large quantities in 2 locations in the house. In front of the kitchen counter where he kept the surgical gloves, and on the right side of the sink in the hallway bathroom. Colette's blood was also found in Kristen's room, even though Jeffrey stated that they were all attacked in their own bedrooms. Also, it was discovered that Kimberly was actually attacked as she entered the master bedroom, not in her own bedroom. And then she was moved to her own bedroom after she was murdered. And their blood types helped investigators reconstruct the events of the night. According to this reconstruction, here's what happened. Jeffrey and Colette had an argument in the middle of the night in the master bedroom, and it's not known what the fight was about, but it is assumed that it might have been over Kristen wetting the bed. Colette then might have hit Jeffrey on the head with a hairbrush, and this left a mark on Jeffrey's head. This is when Jeffrey began to hit Colette with a piece of lumber that he took off from Colette's closet. At this point, Kristen might have woken up due to this commotion and entered the master bedroom. She was then struck on the head with a piece of lumber, either on purpose or by accident. However, she was hit really hard with this lumber. So hard, in fact, that some of her brain fluids were found in the master bedroom. That's how they found this out. This is when Jeffrey picked Kimberly up and took her to the master bedroom after discovering that she's now dead. He then stabbed Kimberly multiple times and proceeded to go to Kristen's bedroom with the same piece of lumber. But before he could hit Kristen, Colette gained consciousness and she walked into Kristen's bedroom. This was found because Colette's blood was found on Kristen's bed, which suggests that Colette might have tried to protect Kristen, possibly with her own body. At this point, Jeffrey killed both of them, and then he wrapped Colette's body in a bed sheet and carried her to the master bedroom. And this is the reason why his footprint was found in the master bedroom. It was barefoot because he was barefoot, and the footprint contained Colette's blood. This is when Jeffrey went to the kitchen cabinets, put on his surgical gloves, and then went and wrote a word "pig" on the headboard in the bedroom. He then laid his own pajama top on top of Colette's body and proceeded to stab Colette's body with an ice pick through his own pajama top. He then wiped all the weapons from the fingerprints and threw them outside of the house. This is when they were found by police. And then he went and grabbed a scalpel blade in his cabinet, and then he using the articles about Manson family from 1969. The gruesome Manson murders just happened a few months prior to this. Moreover, investigators found a magazine that was exactly about the Manson murders in the kitchen of their house. The way that Jeffrey described the people, that they looked like hippies, and they kept repeating, "Acid is groovy." It was almost identical to the Manson family, and also the word pig written on the headboard. It was identical to the Sharon Tate murder by the Manson family. According to the physical evidence found by police, however, there were no intruders. However, Jeffrey continued claiming that there were 4 intruders that attacked his family. Investigators told him that they have all the evidence about him being the killer, but Jeffrey continued saying that he is not guilty and he's actually the victim of this case. Jeffrey also denied the weapons coming from their house, even though the piece of lumber was an exact match from Kimberly's closet. And when investigators told him about that, Jeffrey said that he had no idea why the evidence is so off from his story. Jeffrey did not have any explanation regarding Kimberly's brain liquids being in the master bedroom, why it was there, and he didn't have an explanation why there were no signs of struggle in the living room as well. Jeffrey agreed to take the polygraph test at first, but then he changed his mind and refused it. So they never took his polygraph. Not sure what was the reason behind him changing the mind. So the army was able to charge Jeffrey with 3 counts of first-degree murder. There was a hearing held from July to September of 1970. Jeffrey's defense presented that the investigators didn't properly handle the crime scene, and they actually lost some of the evidence due to this. For example, there was unidentified pieces of skin that were found under Colette's fingernails. And also, as soon as Jeffrey arrived at the hospital staff removed Jeffrey's pajama bottoms, and they threw them away for some reason. So they were never recovered. The attorney also claimed that they actually did, in fact, find the mysterious woman attacker who was with those 3 men. Her name was Helena Stockley, and she was a well-known drug user in the area. Helena also matched the description of Jeffrey, and she wore the same clothes all the time, so she matched the clothes that Jeffrey described. There were even claims that Helena admitted to the murders, and she was witnessed by some people wearing the same clothes on the night of the incident. Because Jeffrey had such good testimonies about how good of a character Jeffrey is, and Helena's confession at the hearing, that was enough for Jeffrey's charges to be dropped, and he even received an honorable discharge from the army. Colette's mother and stepfather were initially on Jeffrey's side because he was such a loving husband. They couldn't believe that he was capable of doing something so heinous. watching the hearing, they decided that Jeffrey is guilty because of the way he was acting. He would be joking around, laughing, like nothing happened, like his whole family was not just recently murdered, and saw how emotionless he was. He didn't look like a grieving father. He looked like he just doesn't care. So in 1972, the investigators submitted a report that consisted of 3,000 pages, and this report named Jeffrey as the main suspect. And in 1975, the grand jury of North Carolina indicted Jeffrey MacDonald, which led to his arrest after a whole 5 years after the murders. And it took a whole 9 years for the trial to begin because of some legal issues. So finally, on July 16th, 1979, Jeffrey was finally brought to trial, and he was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. There was one interesting detail in the trial. The prosecution witness showed the jury the 48 ice pick holes in Jeffrey's pajama top. They were so smooth. The holes didn't have any tearing at all, which indicated that he must have been very still when the holes were made. So it doesn't look like these holes were made in a struggle. Another interesting fact that the prosecution witness told the jury was, if you fold the pajama top just the right way, then all 48 holes would be made by 21 thrusts with the ice pick through the fabric, and makes the stabbing pattern identical to the stabbing pattern on Colette's chest. So the witness argued that the pajama top was folded and placed on top of Colette's body, and then Colette's body was stabbed with an ice pick through the pajama top. And one more piece of evidence was an audio tape from Jeffrey's interrogation from 1970. This interrogation happened a few days after the murders, and this is when Jeffrey talks about the murders so emotionless, and he is very matter-of-fact about it. A suspect, Helena Stokely, was brought in to testify as well, and she testified under oath that she had no involvement with the murders whatsoever. So after 6.5 hours of deliberation, the jury reached their verdict. Jeffrey MacDonald was convicted of 1 count of first-degree murder of Kristen MacDonald and 2 counts of second-degree murder of Colette and Kimberly. Jeffrey had no emotion even when the verdict was read. So this person was a complete heartless monster. So he got a life sentence for each murder consecutively. This made sure that he never gets out. Jeffrey was sent to serve his sentence on Terminal Island in California. By the way, I didn't even know this type of prison still existed. It's kind of like Shutter Island, prison on an island, or the Alcatraz prison in San Francisco. So it's just a whole island of prison. However, a year later, after Jeffrey was sentenced, it was suddenly decided that because the trial took a whole 9 years to happen, it violated Jeffrey's 6th Amendment right to have a speedy trial. And guess what? He was released on $100,000 bail. And he was now free man, all of a sudden. And not only that, he was also returned to work in the hospital. What a turn of events. his rights were actually not violated, and he was taken back to prison after being out for 9 years. Jeffrey tried to appeal a few times with the claim that prosecution tried to suppress some of the evidence in the case during the trial. There were unidentified fingerprints and fiber that was not matched to anyone in the house. There were 2 synthetic white hairs that were found in the house, and defense claimed that it fell from the wig that the woman was wearing, according to Jeffrey. But during the trial, it was decided that the hairs were actually from dolls that Kimberly and Kristen had. However, these unidentified hairs were also found in the hairbrush. But maybe Kristen or Kimberly tried to brush the doll with the hairbrush. Some real unidentified hairs were found in the hairbrush, and they were not identified until DNA became available in 1990s. And this is when it was found that these hairs did not belong to Helena, the suspect, or her boyfriend. However, after DNA testing became available, it was found that Jeffrey's hair was found on Colette's body and on Kristen and Kimberly's bodies as well. And also his hairs were found in both of the rooms of Kimberly and Kristen. Right now, Jeffrey is still imprisoned in Maryland. And guess what? He got married for the 2nd time while in prison to a woman named Catherine, whom he met as a pen pal. And Jeffrey continues insisting that he is not guilty and he is in fact a victim of this crime. But I guess even if he is guilty, he would want to stick to the story that he's been saying for years, because it would be kind of weird to change the story now, so might as well take it to the grave. He actually had a parole hearing in 2005, but he was denied parole. Jeffrey is now 79 years old. The motive is still unknown to this day. What do you guys think? Do you think he did it out of rage? Did he do it? Was it someone else? Do you believe the hippie story? His new wife actually continues to fight for his innocence. The wife actually managed to collect some evidence from Helena Stockley's mother before she died. And Helena's already dead as well. Apparently, Helena's mother, before she died, claimed that Helena told her that she killed those people. And she killed them to teach Jeffrey a lesson because he was too harsh on the drug users. And they even got an evidentiary